Hey my beautiful souls, welcome back to If I Knew Jessie, the life coach. I hope everybody has been doing well. They've been feeling great, been feeling fabulous. If it's your first time here, my name is Jessie. I am a certified life coach, so a big welcome to everyone. I hope you stay for a while because today I am going to be sharing some tips to get into a healthier bedtime routine. Recently, I've been sharing some tips on easing anxiety and stress. My last video was on some suggestions that can help you relax. So if you haven't seen that, I'm gonna link it here above. But continuing on that mindset, today I'm going to be sharing some tips on how to incorporate a healthier bedtime routine. A lot of people don't realize how they contribute to their insomnia, their anxiety, and their stress and their overthinking by the habits that they continue to perpetuate. So today I'm going to be sharing some tips on how to get into a better routine and get away from negativity that's keeping you up at night. So tip number one is a big one, and I know many people do this, and it's going to be no electronics 1 hour before bedtime. A lot of people have got into this habitual habit of getting on their phone, checking their iPads, getting on the computer, checking their socials right before easing on into their sleep. And it's the worst habit you could pick up because a lot of people, I'm not sure if you know this, but a lot of people don't know that the blue light on the screen of your phone, on the screen of the computer, on the screen of your iPad is keeping you up at night. The blue light is serving as a block to your natural production of melatonin. Why that is so important is because melatonin is a hormone that actually produces naturally in the body. It actually sends a chemical response to the brain telling the body like, hey, it's getting late, it's time for us to go to sleep. So if it's being blocked by that blue light, guess what? It's keeping you up. One habit that you could get into to naturally help yourself and get yourself to sleep and serve as a sleep aid is to make sure you are not using electronics. That blue light is not blocking your sleep. Number two is to start changing the habit of watching the news, reading the newspaper, or going on socials, any type of media outlet to hear about what's happening around our globe. While it seems like that might be really effective because you are aware what's going on, when you do it right before sleep, it really heighten your fear and negative thought process, right? The last thing you want to go and fall asleep to is not something negative and something fear-based. So if you're one of those people who watch the news right before bedtime, it would serve you best to make sure if you're going to watch the news, you're doing it way before your bed hour to make sure that you are an empty vessel when you hit that bed and you're not thinking about things that is very impactful in the world. If you want to have a mindful and peaceful sleep, you definitely have to make sure that you're conscious of the last things you are listening to right before you hit the hay. Now, my next tip is to make sure you're not eating super late. You want to make sure that your last meal is about 2 to 3 hours before you fall asleep. And why is that helpful? The reason being is that you already have your belly full, you're going to be nice and comfortable, and you also want to make sure that you're not eating too close to bedtime because you want the muscles in your body relaxed. If you just finish, having a big meal, guess what? All those muscles are going to be working overtime to make sure that they are breaking down all that food consumption. Our intake of food prompts the release of insulin. It also prompts our muscles to start working down to make sure it's breaking down that food. So you don't want your digestive system to be working while it should be resting, right? That's going to have the opposite effect. Also, when we eat food, what happens? We get energized and we feel like we have all this energy and it keeps us up, right? So you want to make sure that you are being cognizant of how late you're eating and how close you're eating to bedtime to make sure that you're nice and comfortable. You're not having your body overly work when it should be resting so you can just fall asleep nice and peaceful and quickly. My next tip is going to be in the same category. You want to make sure that you're not skipping meals. Now, this is something I used to do and I used to keep myself up. So I used to eat lunch really late, and because I was eating lunch really late, either I wouldn't get hungry or I'll get hungry super close to bedtime. And once again, what I was doing was interrupting my sleep. I wasn't getting good sleep, and then I'll wake up the next day and I wasn't refreshed. I was falling asleep during the day, and then it created all these kinds of issues. So make sure you're not skipping meals, and that's going to be helpful because it's going to avoid those late night urges to get out of the bed, interrupt your sleep, and go get something to munch on. My next tip is to make sure you're avoiding caffeine right before bed. So that's going to be any type of caffeine. So that's chocolate, that is coffee, that is caffeinated teas, soda. You want to make sure you're staying away from that. Number one, caffeine usually keeps most people up. And number two, caffeine blocks adenosine. Adenosine is a natural chemical that makes us feel sleepy. So if it's blocking that, it's going to keep you up. So you want to make sure that you are limiting the amount of caffeine you're taking in and how close you're taking it into bedtime. So just be mindful of that. I personally drink tea at night, but I make sure that my tea is uncaffeinated. So that is a good tip for you. You know, stick with uncaffeinated teas. You can have water, a glass of milk, something that's going to comfort you, and you want to make sure that you're not drinking that too close to bedtime. Which is my next tip. If you're going to drink something, make sure you're not drinking it too close to bedtime. Now, why is that going to be helpful? Because majority of the people that have issues with sleeping and getting a good night's sleep and they have this very stressful sleep is because they're getting out of bed several times to do what? Use the restroom. So one way to really try to dwindle that down and try to eliminate that period so you can have a nice, restful, impactful sleep that goes straight, 7 to 8 hours is to make sure you're not drinking too much right before bedtime. Next tip is to have a consistent sleep pattern. So getting up at the same time every single day, going to sleep at the same time every single day. Now, why this is going to be helpful? The reason why it's going to be helpful is because it's going to get your body into a nice rhythm. So our bodies get into a rhythm and knows exactly what to do. So what does that mean? So if we create a habit that every single day we're getting up at 6 a.m. and going to sleep at, 11 p.m., every single day it becomes consistent. The body gets into the rhythm and then it knows what to do to naturally produce that melatonin hormone that is going to send a signal to the brain to alert it like, hey, it's time to get ready for bedtime. So you wouldn't have to do much. You're going to just naturally start getting sleepy and drowsy when it's time to go to sleep. And then when it's time to get up, your body is naturally going to do it without that alarm clock. So it's really impactful to start getting into some sleeping pattern if your sleep has been all over the place. It's really important to start doing that, and trust me, you would definitely feel the impact once the body starts picking up like, hey, this is what we need to do. Next tip is to make sure you are avoiding any lengthy, difficult, and complex discussions right before bed. A lot of people I coach do this. Any conversations that's going to stir up your emotions, anything from sadness to anger, you want to make sure that you're avoiding that and keeping those discussions for a different time. So if you're going to try any of my suggestions, definitely put it down in the comments box below. I would love to hear about them. And if you've been attached to unhealthy patterns right before bedtime, list it below. I would love to hear what you've been doing, and if you've been, becoming aware on your own, or this video made you aware that the patterns are unhealthy and you're keeping yourself up and keeping yourself back from a stressful night. I would love to hear from you guys. A lot of the times when we suffer from insomnia, it's coming from stress, anxiety, and overthinking. We're just overthinking, and it's really hard for our minds to get quiet, to settle down. So you want to make sure you're doing your part. You're creating conscious patterns of breaking free from anything that is stopping you from getting a beautiful and restful night. And I will see you in my next one. Bye. Love and light.